Matthew Andrews, who will be our second guest speaker today, is co-director of Shraddha Yoga and board president of Auroville International, USA. He has been a student of yoga philosophy in the light of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother for over 20 years and teaches yoga philosophy in yoga teacher training. He has organized and hosted retreats in Auroville and at the Madhuban Sri Aurobindo Ashram. Matthew expresses his devotion and love for the divine through music that weaves Western folk traditions with Sanskrit and Tamil mantras. Thank you, Dr. Reddy. Our second panelist, Matthew, I'd like to turn it over to you, please.
Thank you, Radhe. And thank you, Dr. Reddy, for highlighting the fact that the Mother said, and also the reality that in order to know a nation's soul or any soul, we have to start by knowing our own soul. And in this way, talking about a soul, we can't just use abstractions. We can't just use ordinary words. We have to approach it in a different kind of way. Our habitual mental way of thinking, we can't think our way into contact with a soul. And Dr. Radhe at the beginning spoke about the importance or the kind of centrality of love and care in human relations, and the fact that as the soul, as we develop an understanding of our own soul, and as nations develop an understanding or an experience, a tangible embodied experience of their own souls, love and care are the natural outcomes of that. So when we think about how do we touch the soul of a nation, how do we know the soul of a nation? First, we have to know what soul is, and we do that through ourselves. We do that by going inside. You know, there's all kinds of artifacts that reflect what a nation's soul is trying to express. Every soul is an essence, a uniquely constructed divine essence that is trying to express itself within the realm of time and space. And so we can look at the artifacts, the culture, the language, the laws, the music, the food, as Dr. Reddy was saying. We can look at all these artifacts as ways that the soul is seeking and sometimes succeeding in manifesting itself and bringing itself forward and offering its unique fragrance to the collective. So those are the outer manifestations, but what is behind them? What is, what's the space from which they come? And the only way we can touch that space is by knowing our own souls and through our hearts and through love, the natural relationship of any part to its whole, the natural relationship of your cells to your body, to your being, the natural relationship of your liver and your stomach to the wholeness that is you, is love. We've gotten into this habitual scientific thinking, and I use the word science not about the scientific method, which is incredibly valuable, but the fundamentalist dogma of materialism that says that there's just a machine going on here. My relationship to the earth, gravity, is a mathematical equation. Gravity is not a mathematical equation. Gravity is the earth holding you against her because she loves you, because you are part of her, because she gave birth to you. So love is not an abstraction or an idea or a function. Love is the actual organic reality of relationships between parts that relate to each other, parts in relationship to the whole, and the whole in the relationship to the parts that it has given birth to. Sri Aurobindo said that the soul is greater than its instruments and cannot be shut up in a physical, vital, mental, or temperamental formula. So the soul is the wholeness that connects, and the fabric of the connection is love. So how do we touch in to this love? How do we experience this love? Well, what do you love? Just think of something that you love. Think of someone that you love, a family member, a tree, a pet, an animal. a place, the mother, the earth. We can easily touch into the experience of loving and allow that to inform and open the faculty of sensing that is the heart, that can provide a pathway to knowing the soul. And then we see the outpicturing of the artifacts of that soul, whether it's a person or a nation, for what they are, the reflections of this deeper radiance, this inner presence that just proclaims, I am. I am, and this is who I am. This is the uniqueness of my being. Every nation, whether or not they're embodying that soul, has a soul. Every nation, every person, whether or not they're embodying the qualities of their soul, is a soul. And, Paramahansa Ramakrishna famously said, the difference between the jnani and the vijnani. The jnani is the one who knows that God exists, the one who knows beyond a doubt that a log of wood contains fire in it. That's a jnani, right? They know. But the vijnani is the one who takes the log of wood and extracts the fire and cooks a meal on it and is nourished. The jnani, he said, some have drunk milk, some have heard of milk. Some have seen milk, some have heard of milk, and some have drunk milk. The vijnani has drunk the milk. And so in our own way, in our own being, if we want to touch the soul, if we want to directly experience what the soul of another person or another nation is, we have to drink the milk of love. We can't just talk about it. We can't just think about it. We can't just observe it. We have to drink it. So we enter this relationship in our own hearts with love itself and allow that love to connect us to the soul of a nation. We can look at, the soul of America. What is the soul of America? And of course, a soul is not black and white and exclusive. It's not one thing or another in kind of strict linear ways. One nation doesn't just reflect one principles and another nation another principles. But the soul of America, the United States of America, there's this seeking to express about the individual liberty, the desire for each individual to have the capacity and space and freedom to express themselves. And on the deeper level, this is the soul expression. Every soul should be able to express itself. And you can contrast that with the soul quality of India that says that true freedom comes through self-offering, not through self-aggrandizement, but through self-offering and the sublimation of personal desire to divine adoration, desire for the divine, aspiration for the divine. So we have these two seemingly opposing, individual liberty versus self-offering. They're actually two wings of the same bird. They can't exist without each other. They are dependent on each other, and our existence is dependent on both of them coming together. But one is manifested more strongly through the being of one nation, and one is manifested more strongly through the being of another nation. And just like two individuals, if these nations can offer, freely embody, and offer that wisdom, every soul exists not for its own glory, but to offer. Every soul, the natural state of every soul is, how can I help? How can I give to the wholeness? How can I express myself in a way that serves? And so every nation, it's the same way. The expression, the fullness of an expression of a nation's soul is going to serve. It's going to offer something to the wholeness. And if these two different nations can offer their essential being, then we have an earth that can partake of these two different qualities, these two wings of the bird, and the wings can flap and the bird can fly. Soul is the timeless essence, the unharmable essence that's seeking to express itself. And when a nation is not embodying its soul, and when a person is not embodying its soul, their soul, it's easy to say, it's easy to focus on the limitations. It's easy to focus on, it become hopeless or cynical because we say, oh, we can say these are the sole qualities of the United States of America, liberty and self-expression, or, equality. All people are created equal. Well, the United States has certainly not embodied that statement, that quality. All people are created equal. There's been immense injustice in the way the United States has treated people here, especially people of African descent, and also people throughout the world. But that limitation it obscures the radiance of the soul. But it doesn't mean there is no soul. It doesn't mean that the soul isn't there. It doesn't mean that there's just empty words. The words, the founding principles of the United States, and I would also say, in India, it's not the same. I wouldn't point as much to founding principles as I would say the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana. These ancient wisdom texts that hold these qualities of soul so deeply that, the Upanishads point to the invisible reality out of which all visible, everything that we see and touch and smell and hear emerges, and the invisible unity, the Brahman that unites all creation. This is the essence of the Upanishads, and this is part of the soul of India. This is an expression. Part isn't really the best word because it's a segmenting, but it's an expression of the soul of India. It's that within India which seeks to express itself. And so these words, even though India hasn't fully embodied and isn't always fully embodying these words, doesn't mean that the soul isn't there behind the veil, always trying to express. And so what can we do as individuals, and what can national pavilions do in Oroville? Well, they can honor and call forth the soul, even of a nation that is confused, that is lacking, that is limited in its soul expression and in its subjectivity, in its recognition of its own soul and the soul qualities of others, and the fact that every soul was created for a purpose and should be honored and valued so that it can express that purpose. Even a nation that's confused about that, instead of kind of lamenting or dismissing or diminishing, just like with another person, if there's someone we don't agree with, we can diminish them, we can mock them, we can deride them, we can resent them, we can reject them, or we can hold firmly the knowledge that they are a soul. And we can allow love. And love isn't, love isn't like a sentimentality. Love isn't allowing or condoning someone's actions, but love is the fierce commitment to not allowing destructive, diminishing energies to move through us, and to instead align ourselves with generation, with saying, I recognize and honor the soul quality that is at the essence of you. Even though you aren't expressing that right now, without any sense of superiority or domination, it's holding the reality, the underlying reality of the being, of the nation, of the person, with love, and remaining firmly committed to that, while all the vital and mental layers of our own selves try to pull us in a different direction. So we can have conversations and we can have an abstract, thought about soul and about relationships of soul of nations, or we can, within ourselves, commit to loving, honoring, revering the soul of every nation and of every being at all times, and rooting out that in us which would pull us in the other direction, acknowledging that which in us will pull us in another direction, shifting our alignment away from desecrating or mocking or diminishing in any way the soul of another, and aligning ourselves with upholding, honoring, revering the soul of another. Right now, Well, I'll just say one thing, which is that the absence, love is generative, and love is harmonizing, and love creates life, creates health in our bodies. When our souls, when our cells love the wholeness of our being, we're healthy. When our body systems and functions are functioning with love, we're healthy. When we love the earth is healthy. When nations love each other, there's harmony. Now, the breakdown of love and the shift to degeneration means in our bodies disharmony and dis-ease. It means on the earth, climate, ecological problems, when we aren't in love with the earth. And when nations are not in love with each other, we have war. And today, it's a poignant and painful reality that today, one nation has invaded another nation, has initiated an act of war. And this can only come from the separation from the reality, the underlying truth. I mean, this is the thing, is love isn't something we impose. Love is the truth. Love is the organic underlying reality of existence. And we can deny that. We can reject that. We can separate ourselves from that. But it doesn't become untrue. It doesn't become unreal. It's ourselves who have entered into an illusion. And when one nation invades another nation and invalidates its sovereignty, it's the same thing. And today we have that reality that is happening. And in the face of that, we can be afraid, of course. We can be angry, of course. But we can also root ourselves in the firm commitment and conviction that these two nations are souls, both of them. They are manifestations of divine radiance, holy, sacred, divine radiance manifesting itself in a collective on a large scale. And beneath whatever veneer, whatever illusion the people and the systems and structures of that nation are putting forward right now, that soul remains. That soul has not been diminished. It has not been harmed. It has not been destroyed. It is unharmable and indestructible. And light will prevail. Truth will prevail. Always. And the Upanishad, the Mundaka Upanishad says, Satyameva Jayate, Nanritam. Truth will always prevail. Light will always prevail. Love will always prevail. We are pulled into conflict. We are pulled into moments of purification where all the dark and unloving and untruthful things within us need to be purged and brought to the surface. These moments happen. They're passages. This is not the end state. We're not heading downhill into a dark, bottomless abyss. When there's a conflict, when the darkness is drawn to the surface, we need to bear witness. We need to keep our hearts open, and we need to root in our faith, our shraddha, in the victory of light and the victory of truth, which is inevitable, as the Mother said countless times. The victory is assured. So whatever we see happening on the outside, that doesn't mean we don't feel pain. It doesn't mean that we reject our human emotions, that we don't stand with people who are suffering and hold them in our hearts and accept the reality of that. But it means that we do it without hopelessness and despair. We do it with hope. Hope is the most powerful force in the face of darkness and untruth. Because hope is that which rejects the voice of the darkness, the voice of the darkness, the voice of death in Savitri, which so poignantly conveys the illusion that all is fallen, all is permanently fallen and permanently falling apart, and that's all there is. And Savitri says no, so clearly, so firmly, so without any wavering, no. Love is real. You speak the truth that slays. I speak the truth that saves. We each have the opportunity and the responsibility at this time, as much as any other, to align ourselves with the truth that saves and to speak the truth that saves at any moment, any opportunity that we have. And national pavilions can be an embodiment of the truth that saves, the truth of the soul of every nation, an honoring of the soul of every nation, that every nation is a soul, and that soul is seeking expression and will find that expression. So the pavilion can be a kind of an incubator, a place where that expression of that national soul can find embodiment on earth, and then it can ripple out, and that the whole fabric of the earth can be blessed by the progressive embodiment of these nation souls. I'm very honored to have the opportunity to share my heart with you all today, and thank you.